Hello. So in this video, we are trying to learn the SEO guide to buying domain names. So domain name is something that is very important for our website, like your website. And this in this video, we will try to learn everything about domain names and their relation to SEO. So a quick note before start. So if you have already bought the domain name, then you can skip this video. Otherwise, you can continue. So here are the list of things that we will discuss in this video. The things will be the domain names and SEO, like you can see on the screen, the exact match domain, things to know and avoid before buying a domain name, type of top level domains or TLDs, and domain age and domain history. So we will start with what is domain name. So domain name is something that is easier to remember and it is associated with an IP address. So suppose IP addresses comes in numbers, so we won't be able to remember numbers. So that's why the domain name system has been set up so that we can identify different names without having to remember the numbers. So common examples are, the google.com, the wikipedia.com, twitter.com, or my website pacted.com. So these are the some examples for domain names. So basically anyone can purchase domain names as long as it is not taken by somebody else. I mean, you can still purchase domain names which are taken by somebody else, but it would be a huge mess. Basically, you would have to negotiate with them, and you would have to basically pay a whole lot more cost than you would have to buy when you're buying a new domain name. The next thing is that we are talking about domain names and SEO. So when it comes to SEO, domain names doesn't affect SEO directly. That means that it is not important that if your name has keywords or not, or maybe it is a brand name, it won't affect the SEO directly. Basically, it is not a direct ranking factor, although there are many scenarios like exact match domains and things like that where the domain name could be a critical factor, but overall domain names doesn't really affect SEO directly. So the next thing we are talking about is exact match domains. So exact match domains are what they sounds like. So exact match domain would be, suppose I am selling SEO services. So an exact match domain of mine could be SEO services in Delhi or SEO services in Mumbai.com, something like that. So that would be an exact match domain because basically I'm using keywords in my domain and it is mainly used for ranking purposes as it is written here. It is not something that users will remember most of the time, because as you see, if I open a search engine results page or SERPs for short, if I open that and if I write something like tech gadgets, every single domain on the list have keywords like techgadgets.com and techgadgets in malaysia.com or something like that. If every domain is like that, then user won't be able to remember the names. And suppose if in the list of these domains there is one domain that is standing out from the rest, users can remember those domains. So it is only for ranking purposes, and historically they have ranked well. Like there have been many case studies where people have saw that exact match domains ranking very well, but it is just a pure form of luck, or maybe they have optimized their site in such a way. It is not something that everybody should do. Just because they have ranked historically well doesn't mean you have to do it. It is more about business reputation. So it is more like, if if you have a brand name, if you have a business name, then it would make sense for you to make your domain name same as your business name. But if you don't have a business name or something, or if you are running an affiliate site or something like that, then maybe you can use something like exact match domains. But yeah, it is more about your business reputation and your reputation and EEAT, which we are already talking about a lot. And the exact match domain should not be overly spammy, because as you can see, Google have already countered these things by releasing updates. I think there was an exact match domain update in 2012 or something that tackled these issues. So Google is looking at website names and domains to see if they are overly spammy or not. So it is a best practice to not make the domain too spammy. Even when you buy domains, Google suggests that if you have relevant keywords related to your business, then you can add them. But it is not you should not make it look and sound like spammy, because if a user sees your site in SERPs, then they can think that your site is spammy, even if it is not, just because they have read your domain and it sounds like it is spammy. We don't have to make it sound like spammy. So here I am giving you some best practices when you are choosing your domain name. So these are from Google, and the first thing is that you have to keep it short, like under three or four words or terms. You don't have to make it overly long, like we don't want our domain name to sound too long. And we, like, Google also says that you have to use descriptive keywords. So as you can see in this article, this is actually by Google domain. So if you look here, it actually says that if you have any relevant keywords related to your business, then you can add, or maybe even your location, you can add your location or relevant keywords in your domain name. But again, we don't want to make it look and sound spammy. But yeah, at the same time, if you want to, you can add your business, like your location and any descriptive keywords that you want to add to your domain. Next is you can make your brand name your domain name. So as we discussed before, you can actually make your brand name as your domain name. So for example, if my brand name is Pacted, so I made my domain same as my business name. So it is a good practice, and it will actually help users and Google understand more about your domain. It is not important that you will rank, that your domain will rank perfectly in a short amount of time, but as time passes, Google will understand your business name and it will associate it with your business. So it is a good practice to actually use your brand name as your domain name. Next is you have to choose a relevant domain ending, which is top level domain. So we will actually discuss about it. And here are some things that you should avoid adding in your domain name. So the first thing is numbers. If there is an absolute necessity when you want to add number in your domain name, or your brand name contain numbers, then it is okay to have numbers. Otherwise it is not relevant to add numbers, because it confuses both the search engines and the users. Same goes with dashes or hyphens. If there is an absolute need for hyphens, then you can use it, otherwise you don't have to use it. Next is misspellings of other business names. So for example, you are making a site and it maybe rhymes with or have similar spelling with Amazon.com, maybe Google.com, Facebook.com, or something like that. They are already trademarks, so you can get at a risk of copyright. You obviously don't want to buy a domain name that is hard to spell, because it will be harder for users to actually type in your domain name and to find your website. So it is best to avoid this thing. And next is homophones. So these are words and phrases that almost sound same but have different spellings and different meanings. So for example, meet, when I say meet, it can be MEET, which is to meet somebody, and MEAT, which is a food basically. So it is best to avoid homophones, because it is again harder to spell and users won't know which is the exact spelling. Another example can be right. So when I say right, it can be RIGHT and WRITE. So it can be any of both. So it's best to avoid these. And next is long names. So you don't want to obviously name your business, I run a business design thing.com. So you don't want to make it sound too long. Basically, we don't want to do that. If it really makes sense for you or your business name is too long, then maybe you can shorten it, or maybe if you don't really have any other option, then you can go with longer names. But yeah, I think domain names within 3 or 4 words is perfectly fine. Next comes top level domains, or TLDs. This is the part which comes after the domain name. So the part which is .com after Google's name, like google.com. So that .com is the top level domain. It is also known as domain extension or domain ending, and it helps users and search engines identify the type of website, purpose and location without reading the content. So for example, my website top level domain is .business. Like my website name is pacted.business. So before a user lands on my website, they would know that this website is related to business. Or if my TLD is pacted.accountant, they would know that I am an accountant. So this helps identify both users and search engines what is my type of website. It also helps in identifying location. So for example, if my top level domain is pacted.in, then search engines and users would know that it is Indian website. So if my domain is .uk, then both search engines and users would know that it is UK website from United Kingdom. So here we are, and now we will discuss the different types of TLDs. So there are these 5 types of TLDs, which is generic top level domains, sponsored, country code, infrastructure and test top level domains. So I will tell you a bit about each of these domains. So first comes the generic top level domains. These are basically the most common and known type of TLDs. These includes anything like .com, .net, .org. These are very generic, basically, as it says. Next comes the sponsored top level domains. These are basically the ones which are used by specific type of organizations or businesses. These includes the .gov for government organizations. It also includes TLDs like .edu for educational institutions, .museum for museums only. So these are only for specific kind of things. Next comes the country code top level domains. These are common but not as common as generic ones. So these are basically, so Google use these type of TLDs to identify which country this site is from. So for example, if the site is from United States, they can use .us, and if they are from France, they can use .fr. If they are from United Kingdom, they can use .uk, .in, .es and many more. So it basically confines the rankings and traffic from this particular country. Sometimes the CCTLDs ranks in other countries, but it is basically a little harder to rank in different countries. And on the flip side, it is easier to rank in the specific country. So if my business in UK, then, and if I'm using the .uk TLD, then it becomes easy for me to rank in my country. Next comes the infrastructure top level domains, and this only includes this ARPA TLD, and it is only reserved for this particular organization. And the last one is test top level domains. These are basically for when you are testing things on site and things like that. So these can include things like .test, .example, .localhost. So not every TLD that you will buy and are thinking of buying is a great TLD. So there is a concept called abused top level domains. So these are the basically TLDs that don't have a great reputation because they have been used by a lot of people, and most of these ended up becoming spam site or phishing site or something like that. So these are some of the examples that I have listed here. And there is also a site which you can go check and see before buying if this TLD is spammy or not. So basically, let me show you the exact site. So this is the site which I am talking about, and as you can see, these are the 10 most abused top level domains. If you basically buy one of these, it can happen that Google can see your site as a bad domain and as a spammy site. Apart from this, you can actually, they also have this little tool which you can use, and you can choose any kind of TLD which you are looking to buy and check to see if this is a bad domain or not. So for example, if I have a fitness gym or something like that, so I can use .fitness. So it is telling me that it has a 0.3% bad score, so it's not that bad. So I can actually use this TLD if I want to. So this is a great tool to actually see and look if the TLD you're buying is a spammy one or not. I will put this link into the description if you want to check it out. The next thing that we are talking about is domain age. The domain age represents how long a domain is in Google's index. So for example, if a random.com domain is in Google index for like 13 years, then the 13 years is that domain's age. So that the argument is that the longer a domain is in Google's index, the more you will benefit. That domain would have attracted a lot of links and maybe link equity or something like that, and you can use that past link equity to make your new site, and then you can get some of that into your new site. So this is a thing, and this is the argument that everybody seems to say, but according to Google, it could be a ranking factor back in the day, but it doesn't work much now. Next is domain history. This is actually related to domain age. The domain that you are going to purchase can have a bad history. So for example, you are a financial business, but the domain you want to purchase has been a spammy site before and Google knows about it. So it can happen that Google has a bad thinking about the domain name, and if you are going to purchase it and if it has a long list of bad history, then it can be hard to recover, because you need to see if the domain has actually any manual penalties or maybe any manual actions on the site that you don't want basically when you are building a new site. And again, how a domain was used in the past can be a factor in how Google treats it today. So if a domain was not good in the eyes of Google back then, it can happen that then you can suffer from it. You can get a bad reputation in the eyes of Google, even if you are not doing any bad work or any spammy kind of work. And yeah, it can affect your rankings and traffic. So it is something that you should watch out for. And actually there is a website from Whoisrequest where you can see if this, what is the history of this domain. So let me show around this website for you. So this is the website. So for example, they have said youtube.com, so let's put youtube.com here. And when we click on get history, it will actually give you all the history related to this domain. So it says it has 6 changes. Domain was created in 2005 and these were the name servers of the original domain, and then these are all the changes that it went through. So this is a great tool to identify if the domain you are going to purchase has a good history or not. And this brings us to the conclusion of this video. The conclusion is that domain names doesn't affect your SEO directly. It can affect your SEO, but not in very direct way. The next thing is that you don't have to buy exact match domains or EMDs if you really don't have any reasons. The best thing is that if you have a brand name, it is a best practice to use your brand name as your domain name, and the TLDs play a very huge part in domain names. So you should choose your TLDs according to your business. If you are operating in a specific country, then it is a best practice to get the country code top level domain. And if you are operating worldwide, then you can get a generic TLD like .com, .net or something like that. And the last thing is that domain age doesn't matter, but the domain history does, because if the domain has a bad history, then Google can see it as a spammy site or phishing kind of site, and that can affect your rankings and your traffic. So that's all for this video. Thank you.